Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel and welcome to my little cozy corner of the internet. Pen here. Today I'll be reading chapter 2 of Waffles, Shin, Soukoku and Soukoku fanfiction. Hope you guys enjoy and let's get into this. Chapter 2, 12 years ago. Soft raindrops fell onto leaves, children with colourful rain boots stomped into puddles, everyone making their way to school in a group, laughter, chatter and umbrellas bumping into each other. In the back of the group was a little redhead sitting on the floor helping a ladybug get into the shade under a leaf. His umbrella was tossed to the side, but he didn't seem to care about his expensive dark blue suit jacket or plaid shorts getting wet. "What are you doing?" a child said in a petty voice. He and his other friends he had his other friends with him. Trio looked up at them and gave them a light smile. "Helping the ladybug?" His voice was cut off when the boy gave him a harsh kick to the stomach. "You know what I hate? When people like you act nice. Don't pretend you're not rich. People like us have to work for everything we want to achieve." The child spat with tears welling up in his eyes. Trio looked up to the boy with wide eyes only to be kicked again. I'm sorry," Trio cried out, but by now the children were up ahead were already gone. You act like a problematic child. Shut up. You know everyone only showed up to your birthday because you're rich." Tears rolled down the redhead's cheeks. "It's not like I can help it." He was kicked a little more until he felt numb. He was kicked more and more until he felt numb. Once he was left on the floor with bruises all over, his umbrella was thrown over some random person's yard before the kids ran off. Tria laid there. The cold, wet floor concrete was the most comfort the child could ask for right now. Another child came into his sight. It was one from another school. It had a light blue dress shirt with a yellow bucket hat and dark brown hair. The child bent down and poked the one who looked dead. "What?" the redhead finally spoke, with a dead voice making the brunette jump back. "Whoa, you're alive!" "And you thought I was dead?" The redhead didn't get up from where he laid. "Kinda." The brunette leaned closer. "What happened to you?" "I tripped," the redhead said quietly. "There's no way you tripped and got that hurt," the brunette said with a disbelieving tone. He tapped the tip of his finger on the redhead's closed and swollen eye, making the redhead yelp in pain. The redhead attempted to sit up, but felt a sharp pain in his upper and elbow, his upper chest and elbow. The brunette offered a hand, which the redhead hesitantly accepted. "What's your name?" the brunette asked. "Chia." The redhead leaned all his weight onto the other. "That's a pretty name. Can I call you Choo Choo?" The redhead scoffed. "No way," the redhead spat. "What's your name?" "Osamu." The brunette smiled at the redhead. "What school are you from?" "I go to Loopton Kindergarten. Why do you ask, Choo Choo Chan?" "I told you not to call me that," Chuya spat, making the brunette laugh teasingly. "You look like you go to the prestigious school nearby here," Dazai mentioned as he viewed the other's uniform. The other just looked away. "Yeah, it sucks," Chuya muttered. "What? I thought in schools you get good meals and pretty girls." "Girls?" Chuya choked out. "Present time. Remember that day we met, Chibi?" Dazai mentioned as he lounged on the big couch. "Yeah, you gave me your first name," Chuya replied with a small growl as he sat on the carpet playing video games on the TV. "What's wrong with that? You gave me your first." You don't just give someone you just met your first name. "And I only gave you mine because it's easier to say than Nakahara." Chuya sighed when he lost his current game at Mario Kart. I miss when you used to say my first name." Chuya's ears picked up. "Why would you?" Chuya asked, looking over to Dazai to see his gaze on him. "Why don't you call me that anymore?" Why don't you call me that again? Darzai ignored the question, a light smile on his face. No way, Chuya hissed, looking back over to the game. Please? Choo-choo. There was a long pause. Stop acting like a child. There was a small pause in the redhead's voice. Osamu. He could sense a smile lift up from ear to ear on the brunette's face. With his own face felt a blush appear. Remember how when we were children, we used to play dress up? The brunette asked, letting his gaze soften as he looked at Chuya's hair. Yeah, he used to put me in princess outfits. Chuya let himself smile a little. His breath hitched when he felt a pair of hands wrapped around him. Darzai, what are you doing? I'm hugging you. Darzai let his face dig into Chuya's hair. The redhead's face became a light shade of pink. We also used to do this when we were younger, Darzai said. His grip was tight. Even if Chuya wished to escape, he couldn't. But as much as Chuya wouldn't admit, it wasn't half bad. Why so fixated on the past today? It was out of the ordinary. The relationship usually consisted of Darzai continuously teasing Chuya, but maybe the brunette was feeling a little sentimental, or maybe he just wanted an excuse to hug Chuya. Maybe I just want to smell your hair, Darzai snorted. What the heck? Chuya couldn't hold back his laughter. These sweet moments were everything. Even if Chuya retorted and playfully hit Darzai, or the brunette would ruin it with a dirty joke. Nothing more than small hugs and signs of affection, even if the brunette wanted more. We should study for our exams coming up, Chuya said, attempting to leave the others' embrace, only to be held back once more. But Chibi, Darzai whined dramatically. You know how my father will feel if I get a score below 80, Chuya said, letting him force out a laugh. There was a moment of silence. It wasn't really all, because it really wasn't all that funny. His father would get mad. It's okay. I don't need you to feel bad for me. Chuya's words trailed off. He was released from the hug, which made him which he already missed. Why don't we study together at the library? Darzai suggests. Chuya just agreed with a nod. Did you forget you're suspended for a week, and it's literally in the middle of the night? It was true that Darzai was banned from the library for a week after jumping off the library's large balcony. He ended up with a sprained ankle and a suspension after begging for mercy from the principal. I know. Darzai's smirk grew. Wait, and that's how they ended up outside the huge door of the library at 1 a.m. This is so stupid. Chuya watched as Darzai attempted to pick the lock of the door. I learned how to pick locks in my club activities. What kind of club are you in? Chuya gasped when the large doors opened, revealing a big dark library. Easy, Darzai said with a proud look on his face. We can't even see. Chuya took a cautious step into the library. He could barely see anything. Darzai turned on the flashlight of his phone, which made Chuya sigh in relief. He walked close to Darzai and jumped at the slightest sound. Just as much as a scaredy cat as always, Darzai teased. His voice echoed through the library, which caused a book to fall off from a high shelf onto the floor. Chuya, who would claim his next move was a mistake, clung onto Darzai in fear. Relax, Chibi. There's no monsters, and even if there are, I'll just scare them off. The brunette had this determined childlike expression on. Chuya just laughed. What? Can I at least be applauded for being brave? Darzai said in this playful hurt tone. From then on, Chuya felt less scared. Darzai's jokes kept him distracted. One day, we should have a massive dance party. Bring music and come here in the middle of the night, Darzai suggested, making Chuya giggle. Why must it be in here? Because it's big, which means it's great for dancing. Daza gave some absurd hand gestures to explain his plans. Maybe we should do that in the future, Chuya responded. The idea itself was ridiculous, but believe it or not, Chuya's rebellious spirit spoke to him. Especially when it involved the school and upsetting his father, which the best part is, he wouldn't know it was him. We should seriously focus on studying, Chuya said between laughter. And they did with the exception of some laughter filling up the silence and small chats. The talking and studying was put to an end when they saw the lights flick on and the clacking of heels on the marble floor. Dazai, I think we stayed too late, Shia whispered to the other. They were on the far end, and her steps got closer and closer. Dazai, in the moment, just grabbed Chia and both hid under the table. Chia's stomach dropped when he heard the footsteps stop. Dazai held him close, and if anything, he was willing to cover for Chia. Dazai, I know very well that you're in here, the librarian spat, not even willing to look under the table. Dazai let out a small laugh. He slipped away from Chia, careful not to give away the redhead's hiding. Hey there, Margaret-sensei. Dazai smiled at the woman. She looked at him up and down and let out a frustrated sigh. What am I going to do with you? It was only a week restraint. And you know there are other libraries around here. Around here? You know this place is literally in the middle of nowhere, right? Dazai tried steering her away from where Chuya was. I don't remember you once wanting to study, Dazai. Margaret eyed Dazai with a hum of disbelief. If I get high enough scores, my parents will be taking me out for a special dinner. Dazai was quick at making up excuses, which an excuse the old lady believed. Their voices trailed off, the woman obviously wanting Dazai to get out of here, as he was still restrained. But Dazai himself was a good talker. Tria slid out from behind the table and ran behind the bookshelves to hide from the woman's sight, and successfully escaped. Though he knew Dazai would get his wrist slapped by the principal when he found out, it would be better than what Tria would get. Upon arriving back to his dorm, Dazai would come back shortly after with a post-it note attached to his forehead. Why do you have a post-it note on your forehead? Tria watched as the brunette casually walked into the kitchen. Margaret-sensei does that when she gives people detention, Dazai said as he pulled it off his forehead to read it. It was some detention time signed by Margaret, and Dazai was supposed to give it to the principal once he finished. But don't we use cards? Tria pulled out a card from his pocket. In modern days, the school had key cards for getting into dorms, but they also had detention time on it, where you would get into trouble if you didn't show up and sign into detention at a certain time for a certain amount of time. It also held basic to-do lists like homework, upcoming assignments, and class notes, which, if you wanted to check, you could easily go to the dog stand, which, believe it or not, was an actual dog-looking machine where you insert your ID card and you'd be able to look at all your information on your account. These dog stands were scattered all around the school. Oh, the cards? You know Margaret is an old-time kind of lady. Dazai laughed a bit as he said the words. She doesn't even know how to work the machine. Surprised she isn't fired. Dazai opened the fridge and grabbed himself a little something to eat. Like noodles. Atsushi suddenly made his way down the staircase, but he was buttoning up his red suit jacket and while struggling to keep his backpack closed. Atsushi, do you want anything for breakfast? Dazai offered, but Atsushi just shook his head. I'm fine. I need to hurry out the door since the teacher wanted to help me catch up with the class since I'm new, Atsushi said with a light smile on his face. One that anyone would remember. Oh, I forgot my textbook, Atsushi mumbled to himself as he made his way back upstairs. While you're upstairs, could you wake Octogao up for school? Dazai shouted out. The silver-haired boy was unsure, but agreed to do it anyway. I'm pretty sure he hates me, Atsushi thought to himself as he peeked through the hallway to Rinosuke's room. He walked up to the door and slightly knocked. Octogawa, it's time for school, Atsushi said in a soft tone. Are you going to have to go in there and yell at him to wake up? Dazai said with a reassuring smile as he peeked through the hallway, only to go back downstairs. Dazai-san, can't you? I don't want to make him mad. Atsushi noticed he was already gone. It shouldn't be a big deal anyway. Atsushi tried to assure himself as he stepped into the bedroom. It really was filled with paintings of tigers whose eyes were the only things blank in the picture. They were all really beautiful. Were always the colors were always dark. They portrayed a hopeless monster who saw no light. He could feel it within him. He sensed a shiver down his spine. Yet he felt the light within it. It was like a bright shining lily in a storm that continues to storm, even when the world is not in its favor. That is like a bright shining lily in a storm that continues shining, even when the world is not in its favor. Atsushi continued walking down the room. Wasn't all that big, but he took his time to look at the rather emo aesthetic of the room. Dark gothic vibes more so. Yet it was almost minimalistic. He walked across to where Renosuke slept and looked over to see his face. He was sleeping, surely, but Atsushi could quickly notice how different he looked. His expression was relaxed and slightly less uptight than it would usually be. The red silk sheets he was wrapped up in, and an empty spot beside him. It was a bit sad to look at. It was a bit sad of a sight to look at. Atsushi slightly poked the sleeping one's pale cheek, not really sure what to do to wake him up. Octogawa, it's time for school, Atsushi said in a soft tone, and trying to wake him up and without ending up dead. What? Ryosuke said in utter annoyance, but his words stopped when his eyes met Atsushi's for a split second. He ended up going underneath his blanket to avoid the bright lights of sunshine and letting out a simple, just give me 5 minutes, which felt like he was getting off the hook big time. Thank you, Atsushi said with a sigh of relief. He seriously thought he was going to die for a second there, especially since any amount of eye contact with him catches him off guard. His instincts tell him to run, but his heart tells him to stand your ground. Atsushi quickly scurries out of the room and downstairs. He'd almost forgotten that he was supposed to meet up with his teacher. Did you wake him up? Dazai said as he blinked at the silver-haired boy. Yeah, he said he'll be down in 5 minutes, Atsushi said absent-mindedly, paying attention to grabbing his backpack more so than the brunette. Dazai and Chuya looked over at each other, blinking a few times to make sure they were actually awake. Dazai almost dropped the pancake he'd been flipping onto the floor. And he didn't hit you? Chuya looked at Atsushi from the couch with a surprised expression. I hope not. Atsushi ran towards the door, almost stumbling when he put his shoes on in a hurry. He quickly rushed out as he'd been running late. Do you think Renosuke's sick? Chuya asked with a blank expression. I hope not. Dazai continued flipping the pancakes as he decided to make. Renosuke soon made his way downstairs and causing stares from Chuya and Dazai. What? Renosuke said with a confused look on his face, coughing into his hand a couple of times, then stuffing it into his pocket. The two remained silent as they went back to whatever they were doing. It wasn't long until the rest of the school It wasn't long until the rest left for school, as well as some delicious burnt pancakes that Darzai made. Next time you should probably make the pancakes, was a promise that they decided to make. Even if Darzai had said they tasted fine, after the first few classes, it was finally lunchtime, and Atsushi was invited to sit with his roommates and eat, which he gladly accepted. Do you guys always eat in the garden? Atsushi asked as Darzai led him through the school doors to a garden filled with beautiful flowers and green leafy plants. Yeah, we have our own spot, Darzai said. They both stopped at a hidden place between the trees and flowers. Vines hung loosely, covering the entrance and the hiding place of covering the entrance to a hiding place of some sort. It was a miniature stream of water that ran through some small crevices in a brick floor. There were a few dark wooden picnic tables inside. Atsushi stopped when he saw an unfamiliar face other than Chuya and Ranosuke. She had short blonde hair and wore a blue suit jacket like Ranosuke. She stopped and stared at Atsushi. She'd been attempting to feed Ranosuke some of her lunch. Who is she? Atsushi was the first to mutter out. It almost sounded a bit rude, even if he didn't mean it to sound rude. Meet Higuchi, Darzai quickly introduced her. She seemed rather appalled by the other's existence, but continued on anyway. Hi, I'm Higuchi, Ranosuke's friend, Higuchi said with a bright smile as she shook Atsushi's hand. Oh, I'm Atsushi. Nice to meet you, Atsushi smiled back. Something was almost menacing about her smile, but Atsushi decided to ignore it. They all ate their lunch together. Ranosuke had to attempt Higuchi had to accept Higuchi trying to feed him multiple times, which caused him slight annoyance during the lunch. Are they secretly dating or something? Atsushi asked Darzai, staring at Ranosuke, who seemed pissed off by her mere existence, but at the same time, he always looked pissed off. No, Higuchi just really admires Akutagawa, Darzai simply answered. Neither of them would know exactly why Higuchi admired Ranosuke, but he must have done something good, which is actually surprising. If somebody thought Ranosuke was doing something good, they'd think he'd killed someone and gotten on another's nerves. Well, maybe not exactly that, but it sounds pretty damn close. Around mid-lunchtime, another girl walked through. This one had long black hair and silver eyes, as she also wore a blue suit jacket. Hi, Higuchi. The girl walked over to Higuchi and gave Higuchi a small hug before sitting down. You didn't even say hi to me? You're a cold sister. Ranosuke sipped on his tea, making a little eye contact with her. Apologize for stealing my shampoo. Gin gave an angry glare, yet it had some playful aspects to it. This is Akutagawa's sister and Higuchi's girlfriend, Darzai whispered to Atsushi. Girlfriend? Atsushi's eyes widened a bit. I'm telling you, I didn't, Ranosuke said with a small amount of annoyance in his voice. He coughed into his hand once again. I did it, Higuchi confessed. Ichigo? What? Why so? Gin stuttered in surprise. Because the shampoo wasn't organic. And how could you use shampoo with such bad reviews? Your hair deserves to be taken care of, Higuchi said with tears welling up in her eyes. Really? Yes, and I brought you some Philip B. It's a Russian Amber Imperial shampoo. Fyodor recommended it, Higuchi said with determination. I don't need expensive shampoo, but thank you. Gin hugged Higuchi tightly. What a nice resolve, Atsushi muttered out with a nervous laugh. He was definitely not used to having such dramatic friends, if that was even the right word. I wish Dadzawa would give me some nice shampoo, Chuya spat, crossing his arms in a retort to the situation. But Chibi, last time I did that you got very mad. Dazai slowed his words out with a dramatic pose. Because how am I supposed to know if it's not poisoned? Chuya tried to make sense of his actions. The bickering and chattering continued, with Atsushi and Ryunosuke keeping their silence. Ryunosuke seemed to be reading a classic sort of crime and punishment. A classic of some sort, crime and punishment. Atsushi thinks that's what Atsushi thinks at least. Ryunosuke bangs Ryunosuke's bangs cover his face slightly, and his eyes were narrowed down at the words he read. Atsushi stared at him as he read. Maybe it was on accident, but he had nothing else to do. Grey eyes that became slightly more silver in the sunlight, and the well-fitted school uniform that he wore, it made him think about someone who was quiet but was quick to lash out, a murderer who wouldn't flinch if blood splattered onto their pale skin. Ryunosuke looked up from his book, and their eyes locked for a second until Dazai interrupted. Atsushi, Dazai shouted, catching the boy's attention. You should join our club. Oh, I forgot clubs existed. Atsushi scratched the back of his neck in an awkward yet endearing one of his awkward yet endearing characteristics. What is it about? The silver-haired boy asked. A club to pass time, Dazai said energetically. Why a club just to pass time? Well, in our school we need to join some kind of club, so we got Chuya to make one. Yeah, I didn't enjoy that very much, Chuya spat. But your dad said yes, didn't he? Dazai looked over to the redhead. He wasn't even paying attention, Chuya simply responded with his lost expression. You should join Atsushi. Dazai let out a hand as if making a grand gesture. Sure, why not, I guess. Atsushi agreed. Whether or not he wanted to be in the group or not, it wasn't long until the bell rang again, and everyone began leaving for class. Everyone had left except Atsushi and Ryunosuke, who were packing up their stuff quickly. You didn't want to join, did you? Ryunosuke said, breaking the silence, then coughing a bit. What do you mean? Atsushi tilted his head. I didn't know you were listening, the silver-haired boy added on. He thought that Ryunosuke was reading. It just wouldn't make sense for you to be interested in a stupid club like that, Ryunosuke said coldly. How so? How so? Wouldn't you prefer to join an actual club? When met with the words, he felt like Ryunosuke had seen right through him, which made him feel uncomfortable. Atsushi was quick to pack his stuff and turn to the exit. Maybe so, Atsushi said loud enough for Ryunosuke to hear. Atsushi himself was never good at expressing his feelings in big groups, especially chatty ones. Having outgoing and bubbly friends was great, but he never had the chance to gather himself and join in with the conversation. He always had been better around quiet people, those who were shy. He could actually lead the conversation more naturally and even get to them in some ways. School itself quickly ended, people went back to their homes, and as usual, Ryunosuke went upstairs to his bedroom. Atsushi decided to do his homework in the kitchen, while Dazai and Chuya stalled around the house bored until they decided to go to the store around 7 p.m, which left the silver-haired boy alone. He tapped the tip of his pen on his lower lip as he concentrated on his zoology homework that he'd been given, which was generously made specifically for him as a part of the student offers in the student's abilities. Atsushi wasn't used to this kind of difficulty, but he was sure. But he was sure enough that he could get it done. He just didn't know how long it would take. The boy hadn't kept track of the time, but it must have been hours because it turned pitch black outside. It made him What made him notice was the footsteps that he heard coming downstairs. Daza and Chuya had yet to come back, so he assumed it would be Ranosuke, and it was. He walked down the stairs with the stairs rubbing his eyelids as if he'd just woken up. He wore a black t-shirt with a barcode design on it, a blue jacket that had pockets all over it, and some black jeans. Not to mention his whole outfit was splattered in paints of all kinds. He almost let out a soft yawn, almost too soft for someone who looked like him, and continued walking into the kitchen absent-mindedly. Atsushi just stared at him wide-eyed. It took him a second until Ranosuke noticed him and resorted by jumping back a little. Why are you up so late? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed that. As I said, that was chapter 2 of Waffles. I just want to end this video off by saying also, thank you for over 500 subscribers. At the time of reading this, I am actually at 520, waiting for it to load, 525 subscribers. And that's just amazing. This is the first video I've recorded since we've hit the milestone, and I just want to say thank you all so much. Anyway, thank you. This really means the world to me. And anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.